This segment of the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast is supported in part by Douglas Outdoors, serious rods for serious anglers. Go to douglasoutdoors.com and check out their new lineup of Era rods that retail under $100. Norsk Lithium, the lithium battery that you need is just a click away. Go to norsklithium.com and check out some of the lightest lithium batteries in the market with the best warranty in the business. Mariner Sales, located in the heart of the DFW Metroplex, Mariner Sales has the largest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories in North Texas. You can also shop online at marinersales.com. What is going on, everyone? I hope you all having a great day. The audio on this, for whatever reason, it kind of comes and goes. I'm hoping that you guys can hear me. If you do hear me, just give me a thumbs up on the comments. I don't know why it kind of comes on and off. But anyways, today we have a great guest, Jacob Stems. He came on to the podcast, I think when I was just starting off about 3 years ago, after I left Paddle and Fin, and my show with him went viral for whatever reason. Well, basically because he's a great guest. So I was like, man, I need to bring Jake back on the podcast. I actually ran into him at the Bassmaster Classic Expo. He had the booth right in front of us. I was working with the Mariner Sales booth. He was working with another booth. I can't remember. He'll tell me now. So I was like, dude, I got to bring you into the podcast. So we were talking about how to break down a brand new lakes, and I was making the thumbnail and everything. And then I noticed Bass After Darks was actually have the same title for a live show they're doing tonight, which you can listen to. I think they start off at 8:30 Central Time. And I told Jake, well, I don't want to do the same title. It was like, we got to change it up. But we're going to be talking about how to break down a new body of water. Like if you're going to a lake and you want to either fish it for fun and you want to make the most out of your trip, or if you're fishing a tournament and you want to kind of figure out how to approach that lake or body of water, how to prepare for it, what to research, how to pre-fish it. And if you don't have a chance to pre-fish it, where you can start off and trying to get the most success. We'll break it down by season, by patterns and stuff like that. Jake is, for those of you that don't know Jake is a very well-known and accomplished angler up in upstate, I think New York, at least the Northeast. So I'm glad to have him on the podcast to share his knowledge. We're going to have a giveaway tonight. So hashtag giveaway in the comments section. We're going to be giving away 2 LRS rods from Douglas Rods. One's going to be a bait caster, one's going to be a spinning. And we're also going to give away 2 $50 gift cards from Mariner Sales. So on Mariner Sales, if you live in the DFW Metroplex, you can just go to the store and use in person the gift cards. Or if not, if you live outside of the DFW or outside of Texas, we will still mail you that gift card. It's $50 if you win the gift card or one of the gift cards, and you can shop online on the website, marinersales.com. They have the biggest, at least in Texas, I'm going to say, the biggest inventory of kayak and kayak accessories. You have Jack Power, FPVs, everything, Jack Gadget, Yak Attack, Ram mounts, anything, any company out there that makes kayak accessories, they carry it. So go check it out, marinersales.com. Check out the website. By the way, Mariner Sales is having a demo day. So if you live in Texas or close to the DFW Metroplex, it's going to be at Lake Grapevine. I forgot the name of the marina, but it's in Lake Grapevine. You can research it. Go to marinersales.com or the Facebook page or just the website. It'll have the information, or Instagram, Mariner Sales as well, at Mariner Sales. It's going to be from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. I think it's April 12th, this Sunday. So it's going to be this Sunday. So if you're looking to try out a kayak and you're not sure, go check it out. They're going to have the whole demo fleet. A bunch of us that are partnered with Mariner Sales, we're going to take our kayaks. You can try them out. I know Wesley Gray's going to take her kayak with her NK motor. Yeah, I think Gerald Smith might be taking his Bonafide XTR. So whatever kayak you want to try that they have, and they have like, I don't know, like something like half a dozen brands. Go check it out. It's going to be fun. So again, it's going to be in Scott's Landing Marina. That's where it's going to be, in Lake Grapevine. So anyways, hashtag giveaway. Put it in the comment section. If you can't stick around to the end of the podcast, that's fine. We'll pick the winners at the end of the podcast and then, or the live show, and then you can come back to Facebook or YouTube, check out if you want, or you can listen on our MP3 format on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all major podcast streaming platforms, and check out if you want. If you did, just message me through Facebook and let me know that you won and give me your details so I can send that out. And if you stick around to the end, you'll know. So anyways, let's bring in our guest for today. Jacob, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, I had an interesting day, to say the least.
I know, man. An interesting and expensive day. Tell me about that day.
So, speaking of breakdown of tournament fishing and things that you should do, the number one thing is to always know where you put your car keys. So, I went to a lake here. So, I just moved up to Massachusetts. I lived in PA, and then moved up to Massachusetts outside of Boston here. Moved up in February, so don't know any of the lakes around here. Just had my first tournament last weekend. We got second out of 19th, so good start to the season. But today I went to a different lake. I have a tournament there in a month, but I want to get my eyes on it, kind of just see if I can find any structure and just see it, so I can, as we get closer, I can figure out, what part of the lake has what kind of structure and so on. So I was trying to launch in the morning, and I was trying to figure out if I had to pay at this park because it said you had to scan a code to pay to park, whatever. I ended up finding out we're good until like mid-May. Then you have to start paying. So I was kind of distracted getting on my kayak, and I run an Old Town Autopilot 136, and they have those locking hatches for like car keys, wallets. The PDLs have it on the drive too in the Old Towns, which I usually put my keys there, but I got distracted and didn't think anything of it. So I get back to the ramp 7 hours later, and I wear my ice fishing bibs in the cold water this time of year because they float. So they float plus my PFD. I'm totally safe. It's not a wetsuit, but it'll at least keep me totally float if I were to fall in. But they're big and bulky. So I realized that I didn't put my keys in there, so I thought they were in my pocket. Couldn't find them. Checked everything. Unzipped the bibs all the way up to the sides. Didn't take them fully off, which I guess I should have. Checked all the pockets. Ended up walking back and forth to the car 10 times in total. And as the keysmith guy was creating a new key for my car, I was unloading my kayak and taking my gear like 100 yards to my car because I couldn't drive it over there. And I was like, I might as well. I wanted to make the podcast. So I'm like going over to pack up the car. And then about like the fifth trip over, I felt something fall into my boots. And I don't know how. I don't know where the keys went or how I think Houdini was in on it because they totally were gone. They were gone. I was over it. And then they were there. So instead of $700 for a new key, it was $500. It was $500 with now a spare key because I had my key. So I guess whoever Fishing Universe wanted me to have a spare key, so it is what it is. But number one rule when you go kayak fishing or fishing in general is stay with your routine. Make sure your keys and wallet go in the important place immediately. Don't get distracted because that was a pricey day. And I didn't catch any fish on top of that. I caught.
Oh, that really? I was about to ask you that. At least it paid off. No.
Yeah. I ended up marking like they must have stocked this lake with trout. So I was on LiveScope. I seen hundreds of trout, and I saw a bunch of crappie. Caught a couple crappie, but I had some big fish follow my jerkbait, but none that would commit. So, but again, I wasn't there to catch. I'm like, the tournament's a month out, so I'm not there to figure out a pattern because it's going to change. I was just there it's a bigger lake. I was there to see what banks look good, what banks have wood, what banks have grass. And that way, as I get closer in practice, yes, exactly. And that's what I always try to do. If you can get to a body of water that's close enough to practice, I always recommend seeing it first. So that way you at least have a reference before the tournament.
Once again, for those joining us now on the live stream, we do have a big giveaway tonight. We're giving away 2 rods from Douglas Rods. It's going to be from their LRS lineup, which is Lakes, River, and Sea. They're amazing rods, and we're going to be giving away 2 rods. And we're also going to be giving away 2 $50 gift cards for Mariner Sales, which if you don't live in Texas, you can also shop online. So all you have to do is hashtag a giveaway in the comment section. Right now, we're just starting. So at the end of the show, we're going to announce the giveaways. And if you can't stick to the end, doesn't matter. You can come back and watch this on Facebook, YouTube, or listen on any MP3 formats. We are all in all major podcast platforms, and check out if you want. Anyways, so we're going to be talking, like I said, breaking down in new lakes of waters. One of the things that I wanted to bring you on the podcast is because you did just made a video on that on YouTube about breaking down new waters. One thing that I gravitate a lot, even if it's new water, to like history, or what I'm familiar with, right? Like, even if I don't do great on a lake and I don't have to, like, if I fish on a lake and I haven't done really great and I have a tournament coming up and I haven't had a chance to pre-fish it, I stick to what's familiar, even though I know it's not producing anything that's going to win, just because I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, I don't know if I'm the only idiot that makes that mistake. Well, I shouldn't call people idiot. I'm calling myself idiot. But that's something that I think I have to, like, next level for me is to stop just regurgitating the same spots just because I'm.
But it's your confidence. It's your not only.
But that's the thing. It's like I know there's just not going to be. Yeah, I know there's not going to be a winning bass here. Why do I? It's just because I'm familiar with that spot, and I think that's something I need to work on. But let's break it down. Like you just mentioned, once you go too early, especially where you live right now, we were talking about a month ahead, and you're like right there in that transition from winter, cold weather to spring. So a month is going to play a huge difference between where the bass is going to be. If they're going to be deeper because it's still too cold, if they're going to be staging in the mouth of coves to go spawning, or if they're going to be spawning by the time you get to a tournament. So when you have that, let's start with spring, right? That transition where you're going to fish a tournament and a month from now, and what is right now, the conditions are not going to be the same. What is your plan on researching and pre-fishing?
Okay, so I would say first thing is understanding when your tournament is, what the pattern's going to be. Like you're saying, spring, summer, fall. You should look into what seasonal pattern that those fish should be in. They might not always be in there, or they might be heading to that seasonal pattern, but always understand for the event where they generally should be going towards or be at. So that's number one. Number two is I do as much research as I can if I can't get to the body of the water, or even actually before I get to the body of the water, especially if I can't get to it. So that is, Omnia Fishing. If you guys have used Omnia Fishing, they have Navionics on their phone or on their app. You have Navionics as well, the app. There's other ones. What else? Google Earth. If you guys don't know Google Earth, I explain it in my YouTube video and show it, but on the desktop version, you can go back in time on the images that the satellites take. And if you can find an image when the lake was low, or low from being drought or drained, you can find a lot of really key offshore structure, which can help. And then that way you can know where to look and see the lake via sky from the Google Earth before you get there. So, and YouTube, of course, we all watch YouTube. I watch a ton of videos, even the ones that, don't have many views. Some of those are the juicy videos that give up stuff. So do as much research as you can beforehand. And then, like I said, if you can get to the lake, get to the lake. Like I went today, telling myself, hey, I don't care if I don't catch a fish. I'm still upset I didn't catch a fish, but I was there to recon to see the lake, because you can only do so much from looking on Google Maps. So I was able to see the steep banks, the banks that have wood, the grass areas, find some offshore structure in case they are in that area, because right now my water temp was 44 when I launched, got up to 47. So they're in their winter, they're still in their winter time mode. They're starting to get pre-spawn. But in a month, they're going to be definitely pre-spawn 100%. Not spawning yet, but 100% pre-spawn. So even though those fish are probably in the deeper water or hugging the bottom, I was looking for that stuff in 10, 15 foot, that trees, stumps, offshore structure where going into their spawning areas. So that way I know this is where I need to be looking, because when I come back in a month, that's most likely the areas that I'm going to be catching them.
Nice. That's a lot of information, and I'm glad you share that, because I think that's very key. Like, understanding that you don't want to, when you're pre-fishing may not be the fish where going to be located if you pre-fish too early. On the Google Earth, do you download I download the app, which takes up a lot of space in your computer, by the way, so it can really slow down your computer. But can you do it from the Google Chrome website?
I believe so. I'm not 100%. I know, as far as I know, you can't use the timeline imaging on your phone, but on the desktop, you should be able to do on just like any of the Google Earth on the website. You should be able to use the timing dial. And before we get too deep into it, I just want to make sure people know that, I'm not some amazing angler. I just do the research. Like, most of us aren't Jacob Wheeler. You're not just going to go out there and win it. You got to put the time and effort. So I do the time and effort to hope that I can perform like Jacob Wheeler does. But the more that you can prepare yourself gives you better options and makes you more confident going into the event. And sometimes it works out. And then other times you do all that work and it doesn't. But at least you can say you tried. And whether it's a big event or a local, like a big national event, like Champlain Bassmaster, when they come up, that's going to be really cool. But like even my local events, I do the same exact research. And the more lakes that you can do it on, the more different bodies of water you're probably going to fish. And then it's going to make you better at doing it at new bodies of water. And you're just going to grow your skill. So that way, over time, over years, you're going to go a brand new body of water and already be like, oh, this reminds me like this lake. This reminds me like this. It's this time of year they should be doing this. I should be throwing these 5 baits. And it's just going to make it easier and faster.
Yeah, I was checking while you were talking about that. I was trying to look at the Google Earth from the Google Chrome, but I don't think you can change the dates on it. I think you need Google Earth for that. Okay. I don't have it on my laptop because it takes way too much space. I have it on my desktop. But it is a great tool. I remember when Lake Fork a few years ago, they were doing the drawdown to fix the dam. Oh, dude, everybody and their mother was just going to Google Earth and looking.
Oh yeah,
like let's find out where all the all the laydowns and everything, because they dry down big time.
And for events like that, like big events, when you're traveling to the big trails that you can't get to the lake before you get there, that is when you really need to do the online, the YouTube, as much research as you can.
Bearded Dad fishing on the comments saying Poppy Juice.
Yes.
That's once again, you know Javon. You were on his podcast not too long ago, right?
Yeah, I lived right by him.
Nice.
I did some installs on his
that's what
previous kayaks. Yeah. So me and Jay are good buddies.
So once again, we're giving away 2 rods. I keep mentioning because you guys are not putting anything on the comments. # giveaway on the comments. You're giving away 2 rods from Douglas Rods at the Lakes, River, and Sea lineup. And we're giving away $250 gift cards for Mariners Sales. Just do # giveaway. We'll do a drawing at the end. And if you can't stick around to the end, you can come back to this video and see if you won, and then listen to the instructions how to give me your information if we need to mail it to you. All right. One of the things that I was going to mention is, have you seen this channel? I actually watched it a couple of times. I don't know if they're still doing it. I think it's called Simplistic Fishing, and it's this guy. He doesn't give away his fishing pots. What he does is he breaks down. He does the same thing we're talking about the Google Earth thing. So he goes by it. He marks down all the waypoints, like where he saw timber, where he saw rocks, where he saw grass. Now grass changes from season to season. And then you can watch the video and follow along and do the same thing. He also sells you can get it digitally or through an SD card. He'll sell you that. And I'm not trying to promote him. I actually did that once just to see how cool it was. I did it for Toledo Bend. And I mean, it had like 200 waypoints marked. And again, it's not based on what his fish. It's just based on him looking at Google
what he
Earth.
can find. So that way he does the work finding all the structure, and then you have to determine if there's fish on it.
Yes. So I mean, you can watch the video and don't have to pay for the SD cards or the waypoints, which I think is something like $45. But or you just follow along what he's doing and just open Google Earth and mark what he's marking if you like it. One of the things that I've learned from watching his video is how important creek bends are. Like the bed of the creek, when it has that little bend, like that horseshoe bend, those are money. And that's some of the things that I've actually found from watching his channel. I think it's called Simplistic Fishing.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen his videos, but yeah, creek bends, especially when they go tight against the bank and they're just steep banks, and then those banks have like trees that fall down in. That's literally what I was looking for today. I was finding banks that were steep, with trees that look good, that would be where they're going to come out of the deep water first. And then I was finding banks that I thought were good, but it was just super shallow and gradual. And I was like, I don't like that. But now I know what to look for when I go back. So the biggest thing too about like the lake that I practiced today, I pretty much covered the whole thing. It's a big lake, but I was able to cover most of it, is knowing that structure. And you could do it at home too, looking at like finding all that structure, what parts of the lake look better, is when you start practicing and you figure out a bite and say, hey, I'm catching them on wood, then you already know, hey, I know where there's other parts of the lake that have wood. So you're not second guessing yourself.
One thing that I've had Ethan, Ethan Jett?
Yes.
Ethan Jett, I had him on the podcast. He was explaining how he does like I'm not too smart. I don't know how to use Outlook, I think is the app that he uses. But basically he just uploads all the information, like where there's a boat ramp and where there's grass near that boat ramp and where there's docks near that boat ramp and where there's standing timber, where he sees laydowns and stuff like that. And then he'll mark everything, upload it to Outlook, and then he'll pre-fish it. And if he caught something on one of those, like grass, boat docks, whatever, he'll go back to Outlook and it's okay, show me all the boat ramps that have nearby grass, because that where he caught it, or timber, or laydowns, or rocky banks. And it'll tell you, okay, and it'll just say, okay, this is all the places, all the waypoints of all the places you mark down that have this specific structure that you're looking for. That's pretty interesting. And obviously he's a lot of success. By the way, he won the I still laugh at that name, man, the Jack Off Award. Jesus, I can't think of a from Kayak Angler magazine, where you voted for the best rig. I think
I did see that.
He did win over is it Chad Hoover's son?
Yes, Austin Hoover. I think it was him and Austin. Yeah, him and Austin.
Yeah. So once you get all that information that you mentioned digitally, what do you do? Like, let's start with the pre-spawn. Like right now, because for here in Texas, we're almost past the spawn. But for you up north, you're probably still in pre-spawn. We're probably in post-spawn or at the end of the spawn season. So let's start with pre-spawn. Once you get on the water, like, what are you looking for? How do you translate what you found digitally on your research on the web to what you want to apply now doing pre-spawn?
Yeah, so pretty much I'm going to find everything that I find on the web, the structure, grass, wood, like we talked about, rock, and then I'm gonna look for the mapping if there is mapping on the lake, navionics, which most bodies of water will. Then you can find, like you said, the creek channel bends and stuff like that, and you're gonna want to match up where they should be, and then to some sort of structure. Unless they're floating out there, and you're gonna go out there and live scope them floating out in the middle of the abyss. But most of the time, you're gonna be looking for, okay, they're going to be coming out of this deep water. They should be coming up shallower. They should be coming up towards their spawning coves, getting closer to that, spawning area. And then you're going to look for that first structure that they can find when they come out of the deeper water. Now, some lakes don't get super deep, so that might not even matter to you. It might be a specific just area. Super shallow lakes, they warm up quicker. So you got to take that in effect. The lake I was on today had 60-foot depth, so it was a lot colder. So pretty much what I look for is just the normal spots that they should be coming into the pre-spawn. So main lake points, channel bends, anything like that, and then matching up the closest structure as much as I can. And usually what I like to do, because everybody water is different, is try to fish each one, like each type of structure to match up with what area they should be in. So I'll try to find some wood that's close to deep water that they just came out of, some grass that looks good, rock as well. Because you know that when the water's warming up this time of year, the first thing that's going to get warmer is wood and rock. Is going to be the first thing that warms up with that sun. So usually you can fish wood and fish rock and at least figure out something. So it's just taking all the spots that you found, matching up to the areas that they should be moving to, for whatever area that they're coming into, like respawn, and then just trying a bunch of different areas to see if you can find any success.
One of the things that I find interesting, and I wanted to ask you this, I still have to learn this, and it's not something that it's hard to learn. It's just that it's something that I keep forgetting once I start either pre-fishing or fishing a tournament. I know a lot of anglers, what they do, especially in cold weather, is they'll start off where where you get the more sunlight, the first light.
Mm-hmm.
Do you put that in practice? Do you actually look for, okay, where are the banks gonna get sunlight, first light, and they're gonna start warming up sooner than the other parts of the lake? Do you do that
100%?
as well?
Yeah, I keep that in mind because, again, like we said, this time of year the water's cold, so I will look for not only the structure that we're looking for near the areas, but also the side that gets the sun the most, because that wood and rock needs the sun to warm up. But if you have a creek channel bend with rock or wood on one side of the lake and you have it on the other side of the lake, whichever one's getting the sun more is going to be the very first one that I try. They might be on the other one still, but definitely always factor in that sun. I saw Eli had a question.
Oh yeah, Eli, my bad. Yes, Eli. We're going to go
good.
to your question now. Eli says, since you have done this research for a while, have you seen if there is a consistent average of spots that you find on Google Earth, like 60% actually turn up to 40% that don't hold fish? I'm assuming that's the question mark at the end.
Yeah. It's tough because it depends on the lake. Some lakes there's so much structure. Like there is just so much structure, and some lakes just don't have enough fish for fish to be on every structure. Like if you go down a bank and there's 300 laydowns, you're not gonna catch a fish on every laydown. So it's just trying to find the minute details, because sometimes it's the most subtle thing that makes them hold to one structure than the other. And especially shallow lakes, it can be 6 inches to a foot depth difference, like an entire grass. Like, so I had a tournament this past weekend, and it's a shallow lake. It's full of grass. Even now that it's cold, like the grass is still there in the wintertime. And I was catching fish on a chatterbait, moving around, and then with an hour left, I'm just moving, have my motor on low, just covering water, and I didn't have live scope on. I know when they're in the grass, so I'm just trying to do as many casts as possible to catch fish. I catch one, I spot lock, we're good. And there's stumps all over here too. So I don't know still if it was on a specific stump or why, the rhyme or reason, but I proceeded to catch 7 fish in 10 casts, and all in the same direction. I don't know what made that difference. But a lot of times, like with the lakes with all the grass, you can't tell what's underneath the grass. There could have been a bunch of boulders under there that's hidden by the grass that they hold to, or why that school of fish moved into that zone. But sometimes they pull up into a zone and there's something different, minute detail that you might be able to tell or not, that they like that spot. And you have to, if you can try to figure it out, because if you can figure out that one detail that makes, 300 laydowns look, that there's, there might be 5 that produce fish, but you got to try to figure out why those 5. Is it a small depth change? Is it water clarity? Does your water clarity dirty up a little bit as you're going back? There's so much to it that you got to try to pick it apart. Because if you can get that figured out, it's like fishing 300 docks. Not all those docks are going to have fish.
Yeah.
But the ones you find out, you literally have.
They're usually going to have 20 of them.
Yeah. You got to figure out why that is. So that way you can either, hopefully it's practice and you can go on Google Maps and Navionics and try to figure out why that's different. And then that way you can duplicate it in the lake.
That's very interesting. Eli had a follow-up question. He says, are you still marking all the structure before you go to the lake? I'll take this one, and then Jake, you can add to it. But yeah, Eli, mark everything, like anything that stands out. There's a tutorial on it. It's not hard at all, but you get an SD card. And by the way, little key, on Garmin at least, your SD card cannot be more than, and it's the micro SD, by the way, I think, more than 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes. But it has 32. To be like, 32. Okay. If you get like, I had a problem with it wasn't working. I was like, I don't know why this is not working. I had a 64 gigabytes. Actually, I have one for my GoPro. It's like 400 gigabytes or something like that. And it wasn't working. It has to be a small, like you said, 32, 16.
Yeah, it's 32 or less.
It only takes 1 gigabyte, or I don't know how many thousands of, it's just data. It's just numbers, ones and zeros, right? It's not images. It's not videos. But I wish I could explain it, but you can go to YouTube and there's tons of videos how to do it. I think one of the easiest one is Fishing the Moment does, I think, one where you just mark it on Google Earth and then you download it. I think you have to get a file converter, which you can do online, and most of them are free. And then you upload it to your SD card, and then you insert your SD card in your Garmin. I use Garmin. I'm assuming Humminbird and Lowrance has got to be something similar, although I do think they use a different format. So make sure you follow the format that your fish finder does, and then it'll upload. And depending on the electronics that you have, some of it will upload the same icons you use on Google Earth. Some of them are just going to put a dot, and then you might have to edit it. So make sure when you mark it, don't just use the icons, put a description on it of what it is. Like if it's boulders, if it's laydowns, if it's grass and stuff like that. So let's talk about in spawning. Now you're going to fish a lake and you assume there's going to be spawning bass, or it's going to be spawning season. How do you prepare for it, and how do you kind of break down a new lake if you feel like, what areas of the lake are you going to look for that indicate that bass, if they're going to be spawning, it's going to be in this area of the lake?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, spawning is generally going to be your gradual slopes. You're going to look for the pea gravel, the sand. I've been in South Jersey and seen them spawn on lily pad stems, which is crazy. Yeah. Like they will spawn on top of stumps. They will spawn in odd places, but mainly you're going to be looking for that smaller gravel, the sandy spots. I saw they said time on the water. Time on the water is everything. It's funny because we're talking about spawning, and last year for the Cayuga event for Hobie BOS, Cayuga is about 3.5-hour drive for me from PA, and it was the weekend before the event, and I happened to see, I don't know what holiday that is, but the holiday weekend, and I happened to see that it was going to be sunny and no wind, which if you fish Cayuga Lake, it's a finger lake north and south. You know that lake doesn't get like that enough. And I literally saw it, I think the night before, and I day tripped it. I did 3.5 hours up and back because I knew that for the tournament they were going to be spawning, and I knew that I had a chance to find the fish. So I spent the whole day which I made the mistake. I spent half the day in the morning looking for spawning fish. I caught my personal best. I caught a 5.78 smallie. I had 5 over 19. They're so fat up there. But then I decided to go check a largemouth area in the afternoon, and I shouldn't have. I should have stayed in the smallmouth. And you live and learn. But it helped me for the tournament. And then I had a couple days of practice before the event, and I covered more water. And I left those fish from the week before alone. And I found more fish. So day one, I was able to find the fish that I found later, a couple days before the event. And I had 95.5 day one. Day two, I went back to the fish that I found the weekend before, and I found out that's where Christine was, and the guy who won, I can't remember his name, and all of them were there. So long story short, in the last 20 minutes of the day, I ended up losing my 5th keeper and went from, I would have been like 6th, I ended up 46th. I accidentally snagged one on a bed, and I reeled it in and then unhooked it and let it go. So that was a tough pill to swallow, but that's where it's like, you got to take into consideration, like, I literally see that this is going to happen. I know that this is how the tournament's going to be won most likely. I'm going to day trip 3.5 hours each way because I know it's going to help me. And that's more, we're talking tournament fishing, fun fishing, if you're going to a lake for fun, you don't have to do crazy stuff like that. But when it comes to a big tournament like that, you got to, if you see something that you think is going to work, you got to go with your gut and really try to figure it out. But spawning, yeah, you're looking for those shallow areas, the pea gravel, the sand. I mean, pretty much if you can find, tapering banks like that, not too steep banks, and you should be able to go up shallow. The biggest thing too is you got to remember, depending on the body of water, they'll spawn deeper than you think. Especially with those clear lake waters, like I've caught fish in 10, 12-foot beds before. And you go around, all these bass boat guys are up shallow looking at the obvious ones, and their boat's sitting on top of the actual most of the spawners. And usually the bigger ones will spawn deeper as well. So you really got to take in consideration where your fish spawn in your lake as well when it comes to the spawning fish.
That's a good point. I wanted to add a little bit to that, but before I start, Stillman Fishing, you're on. Thank you for following us on Instagram. For the giveaway, though, the hashtag giveaway, the app that I'm using doesn't recognize the comments on Instagram. So if you can, hop on to YouTube or Facebook and do hashtag giveaway. So you can enter the giveaway, because it's not, I'm checking the app right now, it's not recognizing your entry where you put hashtag giveaway. So if you're still on Instagram, and I think, again, thank you so much for following me on Instagram, but I want you to take opportunity for the giveaway. Again, we're giving away, for those that are joining late, 2 LRS rods from Douglas Outdoors, and we're also giving away 2 $50 gift cards for Mariner Sales, which you can do also online or in person. But you have to be on Facebook or YouTube if you want to take part on the giveaway. And I apologize again, the app that I'm using only recognizes the hashtag giveaways when you comment on Facebook or YouTube, not on Instagram. But again, thank you for the support on Instagram as well. All right, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about that is, it's funny, and going back to time on the water and the pre-fishing, is I was just fishing a tournament in Lake Caddo, which I did really good in late summer, early fall. But obviously it's completely different right now. The fish were spawning at the time of the tournament, and I didn't get a chance. I did get one day to pre-fish, and it was cut short due to thunderstorms and freaking cold rain. And I forgot my rain gear. It was freezing my butt off. But anyways, I had to cut it short. The one big bass that I found, that I actually posted on Instagram, where I'm skipping a Senko to the base of the cypress trees, was that bass that I caught. It was an 18.5 incher, was my downfall, because this is what's crazy about it, and why time on the water was so critical. That was in the very back of a cove. It turns out it was one of those cases where you just stumble into a fish. The vast majority, everybody that pretty much got into the money for the tournament, were finding those same size spawning bass, but more in the main lake or the trees, the cypress trees. If you've been to Caddo Lake, it's just a swamp. It's gazillion cypress trees. And if you want to fish it for on spawning season, just skip or flip a bait up to a cypress tree and you'll catch some. It's pretty simple, but it does test your skipping and casting skills, because any disturbance, like they'll leave. So they're kind of finicky. But the point that I'm trying to make is, like, because I had to, my plan was go to the back of the coves and then go to the main lake and see which one produces more. But since I didn't get a chance to do the second part of that pre-fishing, I thought, like, okay, well, I found them there at the back of cove, and they were not. Only that one, which I didn't get to catch on tournament day. The following day, I caught a bunch of 11 inches. So it's interesting when you mention, when find out where spawning is, like in the case of Cado, which is a swamp and everything looks the same. It's key. Like 1 foot of water, you are gonna find 18-inch or 20-inch bass that are spawning or post spawning, but they're a lot fewer than in the 3 foot depth, more closer to the main lake. And again, Cado is, unless you're fishing the river.
Tough. Yeah, the toughest. The ones that all look the same are so tough to pick apart, and that's when we talk about the minute differences. You have to, and the false positives is something that always happens. You always have to, whether it's not a structure type or an area, like you caught in the back of coves. Unfortunately, your time cut short, but that's when you need to already know, like from your prior research, is if I caught one in the back of this cove, where's another back of a cove? Or if I caught him on wood, where's the next nearest wood that is very similar to what I'm fishing? Because you have to be able to catch multiple fish to feel good. Yeah. I'm not saying if you catch one on a bank going down stumps or laydowns, you catch one, maybe catch two. Okay, if you want to keep fishing it, shake them off. Let them bite it, shake them off. But then go to a different stretch that is similar and try to catch another one, because there are times when, man, they will steer you in the wrong direction, and you just caught a big one, but it was the only one in that area, and that is the worst.
That is a great question. Great point, by the way, Jake. But a great question by Eli Self. Eli Self coming with some nice questions today. Thank you for your support, Eli. How many do you have to find to be confident in an area? That is a great question. That really, well, I'll let you take that first, Jake, and I'll add.
So one thing that I like to do is, like, I use the Garmin UHD, the Garmin 93 UHD ones, the original versions. But what I do is, what's nice about when you mark waypoints, they have the fish icons. They have and they're numbered 1 through 9, and they're different colors. It's like blue, red, or blue, and then orangish, and then red at 9. What I always do, every lake I go to, every time I catch a fish, if it's like a 12-incher, it's a 1. If it's like a 15-incher, it's in the middle. And if it's a big one, that's a big one for that lake, it's a 9. That way I can go back and see. Like I did it at Oneida Lake the one time. I ended up marking every fish I caught. I was fishing a giant grass flat. It turns out when I got done with practice, there was 3 circles in the grass, 3 circle areas in the whole grass flat that I was catching them. I don't know why. And there was probably stuff underneath the grass keeping them in that area. But then I could go back and look and know that. But for confidence in an area, I would say I don't count anything below a good average fish that you need in the tournament. If I'm catching 14 inches or smaller, I'm marking it and keeping it in the back of my head, but I'm not counting that as an area. I want for up here, we don't get, 25 inches like you guys get down there, but like a 15-inch fish plus is 15 to 16, I would say, is average. Once you get above 17, upper 17s and up, that's a good fish that you need in a tournament. So I'll mark the waypoints, and I would say maybe not an area, but an area or a structure type. I need 2 to 3 good ones to feel confident. So whether that's one bank that I go down or 3 different wood spots that I try. But whether it's an area or structure type, I would say 3 solid fish that you need. 2 to 3 would make me feel pretty confident that, especially if it's right before the tournament. Now, if it's a week or 2 away, I would keep it in mind, and I definitely want to try to check it. But if it's like a day or 2 before, I'd feel confident in it, and I would definitely consider that being my starting pattern at least.
That's a good point. And I think one of the things that you mentioned is how far in advance are you pre-fishing? And again, on national trails, you can only pre-fish the week before. Local trails, I don't know about here in Texas, we don't have off
Yeah,
limits.
there's usually it's like a day or two off limits, if
Yeah,
anything.
if anything. But so keep that in mind. So assuming you don't have a restriction on how early you can start pre-fishing, if I'm pre-fishing a month in advance, dude, I'm there to have fun as well. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna cut my day short. Now,
Nope.
if you're talking about you pre-fishing 3 days before the tournament, you don't want to sore lip, you don't want to scatter those fish. I kind of go by the same thought that you have, Jake. It's like if I find two quality, and to me, again, like you mentioned in Texas, if I find 18 incher, two 18 inchers, I'm leaving that spot alone. That's good enough for me.
Yep. Yep.
That's okay. That area is producing. I'm gonna leave it alone. That's it. I'm not
And now you can go check
pre-fishing
other
that no more.
areas that
Yeah,
look
and then
similar.
you look for another areas. If
Yep.
I start catching, a bunch of like 11, 12 inches, I'm leaving that area typically, and it's not always bass. Nature don't follow the rules that we put in our heads, but typically, if you find a 12 incher, you're not gonna find a 20 incher next, in that area. It's typically they'll gather like, prey or fry, stay together, right? And then young immature males are gonna kind of school together, and then as they grow bigger, they kind of separate from the park and pack. And a lot of times they'll just be more loners. You can find school of big bass. Give you an example of Mark Pendergraph when he won the first national championship for Bassmaster. What happened there was a huge rain the week prior or the days prior to the tournament. So he was able to find bass schooling right at the boat ramp where he launched, which is crazy. I was talking to him. I was actually fishing that area later, and I ran into him and told me I caught him right there, like literally 5 foot from the boat ramp. And what happened was the water was so muddy, and there was a pile of rocks right there to kind of avoid erosion, to protect the ramp when it flows into the water. So they were there looking for structure because they can't see anything. So they're packed in there. They're looking for something that makes them feel safe. That's where you usually will find bigger bass just schooling or where they're feeding. But going back to the question, if I start catching 12, 13 inches, I'm going to leave that spot.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on 18 inches and above.
When it comes to smallmouth, especially like if you ever get a chance to like fish St. Lawrence River, smallmouth are very well known to be grouped in size class. So if you catch a 3-pounder, they're all going to be 3-pounders. You have to find the school of 5-pounders because they are way more known for that, especially being in their size class or year class. They will all hang out together in the school.
Now, the caveat to that, and I go back to cattle because one mistake that I made, and if you haven't listened to my the last week's live show with Rolando Nandin and Jason Willis, they were tied for first place. Tiebreaker was their second biggest bass because they were tied for first place and big bass. And they were talking about something that I made a mistake. I caught a bunch of like 11, 12 inches for the tournament, and I just let it go, move to another spot, thinking the same thing that I mentioned. A caveat to that, and Rolando Nandin touched on it, and also Jason, is when they're spawning, that's where you will find a 12, 14, because remember, males bass are going to start spawning about 10, at least in Texas, about 10 to 14 inches. That's why the limit for a keeper to, if you're going to catch and cook for bass here in Texas, 14 inches, because they want you to have them a window of about 2 years for them to spawn. So one mistake that I did that they didn't do is when they caught those smaller bass, what they would do is they would, flip at them on the back of their boat. I mean, in the water. They put him back in the water, but toss them away from when they caught it, because their thought was if it's spawning season, that is a male garter. So the female might be there. If you caught a male garter in a spawning nest, 99% of the time there's a female right there. I've had this story on what's the name of that lake? Wheeler Branch Lake, where I saw, for the love of God, that still haunts me. It had to be somewhere between a 24 or something inch bass. I couldn't get it. And I've told this story in the podcast before. So if you've listened to this story, just disregard. For those that haven't listened to the story, there was this huge female, about 5 foot, no, less than 5 foot deep, right at the brick wall. And I kept casting to it. And what she did, she would, when she saw the bait in her spawning nest, she would go to the male and not attack the male. What's the word I'm looking for?
Like nudge him
to make him get the bait. And he kept doing the same thing over and over and over again. So, caveat to what I mentioned is, if you are in spawning season and you really can't sight fish, which on Caddo Lake it's really hard to sight fish because of the water clarity. But if you can't sight fish and you are targeting beds and you catch a 12, 14, 15 inch bass, toss it on the back, like far away from the nest, go back to the cast back again, because if the female is there, she'll pick it up, and usually she'll be in the, at least in Texas, in the 18 and 20 inch range. Jason and Rolando did that a couple of times and ended up catching like a 20 inch each time. I completely forgot about that. I was catching 11, 12 inches. I was like, yeah, just throw it back, move on to the next.
And all the 5-pounders are down there.
And then, probably a female right there waiting for me to cast my Senko. And I'm like an idiot moving away thinking. So, not like I mentioned it, there are variances to those rules that we make up in our mind.
Yeah, it depends on the time of year, what situation they're in, what season they're in. But I've heard of people doing that. I mean, boat guys, they'll put the males in their live wells and then go back to the females, but we don't have that option. So you kind of just got to give it a little nudge behind the kayak and hope that you can cast up there and her eat it right away.
Yeah. So that's another caveat to it. So for summer, now that we talked about spawn, pre-spawn, well, actually, let's talk about post-spawn, because the thing about post-spawn is the mentality is, and again, I don't think bass follow that rule always, but it's like once they're done spawning, the females go deep and the males stay to guard the nest. There is some truth to that, but I mean, those windows when that happens could be gone in a couple of days. So if it might be true, but if you're not there that exact time where that dynamic is happening, then it's not going to work. But how do you prepare for a new lake when you're talking about post spawning, right immediately after the spawning season?
Man, that is tough. I mean, they always say, right after they spawn, they can be lockjaw. So, you can experience that. I mean, if you have forward-facing sonar, it's tough to not, it's tough to compete if they do go off. If they do go offshore, it's very tough to compete with that. But what I'm looking for, again, is the opposite of they're leaving their spawning cove. So where are they going next? They're going to deeper water, mainly, whether that's along those creek bends like we talked about, deeper structure. So that's what I would be using. Using your 2D, your side scan, I would be looking for that first deeper water and start there. So if they're spawning in less than 5 foot of water, start looking in 10 foot of water, 10 to 15. Start looking for structure. If you don't have forward-facing sonar and they are just swimming around in 10 to 15, that's going to be tough. But usually they're going to be on structure. So use your side scan. Look for rock or wood or grass lines. If it's a grassy lake, if that grass line ends at like 10 foot, they could be laying right there on the edge of the grass before they go super deep. So I would just be like slowly working your way out the depth, the opposite direction now that they're post spawn, and just trying to figure out, again, using Google Earth, if you can get an image shallow enough where it was low enough to find structure that is now in that 10 to 15 foot range with the water back up to normal, and just trying to figure out, testing all those things, testing deep wood, deep rock, and deep grass. And you just test 3 or 4 spots of each of those and try to catch a fish and see what happens. If you can't catch anything on any of them, they could be lockjawed. I mean, it could just be that you are going right past them and they're not eating right now. But usually, if you can work your way out and test all those three structures, most of the time you should be able to figure out generally what they're looking at or what they're trying to do right now.
Uh, s- uh, is that a question? Southern Indiana? Oh no, Eli Self asking Southern Indiana Outdoors. Where are you in Indiana? All right, so that's a question for SIO. So one thing that I want to touch on, and again, this is what I love about doing the podcast, and I don't do it for the followers, or it's just great information, great insight for myself. I get to interview people that fish tournaments or content creators. I remember interviewing one of the best anglers you've never heard of, Michael J. Cage. That guy is an encyclopedia, and it's always a pleasure to fish with him, and it's always a pleasure to have him on the podcast. He's won so many trails. He's one of the OGs of kayak fishing. Older gentleman doesn't do the social media thing, but man, is he good. And one of the things that I remember we are talking about was he won a tournament in Lake Athens, which is grass everywhere. Like there's not a spot in that lake where there's no grass, kind of like Caddo. There's not a spot in that lake where there's no cypress trees. So how do you identify where the fish are going to be? And one thing that he mentioned, and I think for pre-fishing is very important. Sometimes when we're fishing a new lake, we're like casting, looking at where we get a bite. And one thing that we forget, you don't need forward-facing sonar for this, but your side scan is a great tool of finding something different. And I mentioned that because Michael James Cates was talking about, he blew the field away. Like he won by a lot. And I told him, like, how do you find him? He says, I found him in I can't remember, but I'm making up numbers here, but like in a 4x4 square feet of grass that was just kind of like sticking out deeper than any other grass. So it was like something different. The same thing that tells you, like, when you're fishing Caddo is like, look for those cypress trees that you see a bunch of them all cluttered together. Look for that one or two that are separate from everything else. Like there's nothing around that for a few meters. So this can apply for talking about rocky laydowns or timber laydowns or whatever you're talking about, but something that stands out. If everything looks the same, you're fishing like a highland reservoir, sort of like Possum Kingdom, where there's very little grass. If you find grass, you hit the jackpot, because their chances are they're going to be there, because that's probably one of the few places with grass. But when you're looking at what about standing timber? I use an example as Possum Kingdom. Look for that standing timber that is, when you look at your side scan and your down scan, like in the bend of in a secondary point, for example, or that's isolated, or in a creek bend. And the only way you can tell a creek bend, for the most part, you can kind of tell sometimes by looking at the at the horizon, but a lot of times you kind of need to look at your side scan and down scan to see where that horseshoe bend for that creek is. And if you find like a stimber ticking out or a piece of boulder right there, that's going to be money, because it's like kind of double whammy. You got like a boulder, for example, that's isolated and it's right at a geographical point of like an underwater point or secondary point, like a creek bend. So I think you have to spend more time. And again, neither me nor Jake is a lot more successful than I am. I am not by any means Russ Snyder, Drew Gregory, Guillermo Gonzalez, or I'm not any of those great anglers. But one thing that I've learned is, like, look for something that stands out, like something that's different. When everything looks the same, then you really have to go to like, what's different, what's sticking out, what's isolated from everything else, what's that tree that's standing timber that's a little bit just farther away than anything else that's out there. And fish will relate to that.
100%. Another thing I didn't mention that you want to always double check as a great way that could hold fish is where two types of structures meet, where it's changing from one type to another. It could be as big as a bunch of laydowns going up against a rock pile and like right where those two meet, or it could be like big chunk rock meeting pebble rock. Right where those two meet is a great way. Like another like up shallow is lily pads. Sometimes there's lily pads and hydrilla, and there'll be giant patches of lily pads, giant patches of hydrilla. But where those two meet is a great way to look as well. A great area to look.
Yeah, that's a good point. Eli with another great question says, "What is one of the craziest patterns that you have found?"
Oh man, I don't even know off the top of my head.
That's an interesting one because I really don't
Yeah.
go for like, I stay with the classics, like unusual patterns that I found that, like usually I'll find a chatterbait pattern, right?
Mhm.
When we're talking about spawning just a Senko, I don't think that's even I I I don't want to say that's a pattern because really anything you throw in a bed is gonna be a pattern for
Mhm.
spawning bass. Like, you know, what I would say in spawning, what I've noted is if there's bluegill in that area, and bass are spawning, they hate bluegill because that's one of the main predators for their
Mhm.
prey or their eggs. So I've seen bass like when you throw like a Senko, they might pick it up on the corner and just kind of they just do like maintenance work, right? They see it as
Mhm.
not necessarily a bait, but an obstruction for their nest. So they just pick it up by the edge and throw it away. But if you swim like a bluegill pattern like that, and again, I'm not sponsored by Berkeley, but the gilly, when that bluegill pattern is just so good,
I'll give
you
up.
can see bass just chasing after it, like because they're pissed off, like they don't want that thing next to it. I've also heard like salamander or lizard soft plastic like Zoom, they're really good.
What I don't have any like crazy patterns. I would say one thing that's crazy is how much color can matter. Like you could be throwing 5 different kinds of jerk baits, and there's one color where they start eating it head first. Like they are so picky
Yeah,
on colors and stuff like that. Speaking of the gilly, that's literally people hate on the gilly, but one of my go-to bed techniques, and I don't know, it's not that secret, but like a Tokyo rig with a gilly on it, because
that's what I do. That's it.
you can drop shot a gilly, but the
Yeah.
Tokyo rig has a lot heavier weight, so it's closer to the bottom as well compared to a short leader drop shot. So with the Tokyo rig, it's just dirtying up the bed, and all they can see out of that dust is the bluegill body. And man, that Tokyo rig gilly is one of my spawning baits I always have tied on, smallmouth or largemouth. They destroy that on the Tokyo rig, and you can throw it on like 20-pound line on a bait caster and give them the beans when they hit it, so you're not worrying about throwing lightweight light line.
Given the beans, I haven't heard that in a while. Um, some one crazy pattern that I found, I was last year when I did decent, especially since pre-fishing was a whole different pattern than what actually I ended up catching my 2-day limit in Caddo in November last year for the Bassmaster kayak series, the national one, not the local one or the regional one. I started flipping on grass, and everything was going great. I was really catching him on everything, but I ran out of soft plastic because man, I was catching up, especially day two. I was catching a bunch of him, and I wasn't. I thought by my pre-fishing experience, I had the days before that I was going to be throwing a jerk bait, not a jerk bait, chatterbait or a swim jig, the big Joshi, which you can get at Dark Horse Tackle. Um, I thought it was going to be a swim bait deal because that's what was working for a couple of days in pre-fishing. That died off for whatever reason, so I started focusing on flipping or punching grass, I should say. um and one of the I ended up I ran out of all my beaver style, so I ended up hooking on my punch rig the Zoom frogs, which has that
Mm-hmm.
little tentacles. But so this might be a crazy pattern. So that Zoom frog, that is, I don't know the name of the Zoom frog, but and I can't remember the name of the pattern, but it's green on the top and it has an orange spot right in the belly, and kind of like the rest on the bottom is yellow. for whatever reason, and you can apply this to crankbaits and jerkbaits, anything that has a yellow like dot or just stain on the bottom towards the front, for whatever reason, bass love it. That is one pattern. And I remember just like, all right, I don't have any other soft plastic. I'm gonna punch this Zoom frog, which sounds stupid, actually worked great because it doesn't have those little appendages on the side. So it went through the grass smooth, and bass were loving it. So that was a crazy pattern. I was this is how stupid it is. I was punching grass on a soft plastic frog.
I've heard of that because I know out in California,
That's so stupid, right?
Out in California, Greg Blanchard does those frog only tournaments.
Yeah.
And they had to make exceptions because you're only allowed to have frogs in your boat. Mm-hmm. And they had to remove weights because guys were punching frogs. That way they could get bit. So I've heard of that. I've heard of that working. But one thing, I saw Eli's question. Yeah. The one thing that I stress out, and I don't know if it's just because I grew up in like Pennsylvania where our lakes are tough, and Massachusetts seems to be pretty much the similar, but fishing somewhere that you haven't been able to just like catch so many big fish your whole life, the grind and the mental aspect of tournament fishing, I feel like for me, I benefited because I'm used to the grind. There are days that I know that I think the only thing I can do is this pattern to catch them, and I'm only going to catch a fish every hour and a half, but it's going to be one of the right ones. Those tournaments are some of the hardest tournaments. But I almost would rather have that, a grinder tournament, than where I'm catching 100 fish and I feel like everyone else is catching 100 fish. I'm so used to the grinder mentality that's a very tough question. Like, that's very tough, Eli, is to know when to switch, because you don't know when to do it, when to switch, and it's a tough to know. I mean, it depends on your confidence. If you feel really good in practice, then I would stick with it.
I just saw a comment from Hillary Martin. Is that really Hillary Martin?
No, it's probably it's one of my buddies. It's 100% one of my buddies, I'm sure.
That is hilarious.
That's what you get. I saw Rabbit Bates commented, but that's who I was at the Classic with, Rabbit Bates. I was in their booth next to you and Mariner Sales.
So, in case for those that are listening to the podcast and not watching on the MP3 format when it uploads, we're assuming it's a fake account, but Hillary Martin, son of Scott Martin, which is a great angler, cute as a button, just wrote on the comment, "Stem is so damn hot," and I
have a feeling who I know. Yeah, no, it's my buddy. You can see.
Now, if it would have been Hannah Barron, we would have totally researched that and find out.
Yeah,
I just played. One of the things. Let me take that comment down already. That's enough. One of the things that, man, I lost my train of thought. Oh, going back to Eli's question. So, Eli, my experience, like, there's no right or wrong answer. It all depends. Like, when I fished at Caddo Lake last year, and again, I didn't win it. I was proud of myself because I got a 2-day limit, and I put up like 87-inch day 2 and 84-inch day 1. And considering how day 1 started, I was proud of it. Ended up 45, I think, out of 160 anglers, which is not bad. It's not in the money. No, it's not going to win me a check. But anyways, I want to make that point because I don't want people to think that I'm gloating on this one. I'm just telling you what worked for me in a way. Pre-fishing was all chatterbaits, anything that was white and chartreuse. I caught an 18.5 incher on a Zoom ribbon tailworm, which is 10-inch. That they don't make that color. They used to make it for the Zoom brush hog, which is the African Fiesta color.
I feel like I've heard of that.
Yeah. I think the 2 biggest bass in Lake Toledo were caught on that, if you believe what it was reported, obviously. But anyways, they don't make for whatever reason, Zoom doesn't make that brush hog, but they do make that ribbon tailworm. And I caught an 18.5. Those really, I don't think that's a pattern. You can't get a pattern on it, but I think I felt like that was more of a one-off. The pattern was swim baits, anything that looked like a bait fish. For whatever reason, tournament started. It was a lot colder than practice days, and I could not get a bite. And I stuck with it for like 4 hours, way longer than I should, because I was catching 18, 19 inches and not just one. I was putting up almost 90 inches on pre-fishing. So after going through the mental grind of getting skunked there, I finally decided to punch grass. And quickly after starting, I got a 16-incher. And from that point, I decided, all right, this is what I'm going to do the rest of the 4 hours. That's all the thing I'm going to do. So it took me 4 hours to figure out, a lot longer than it should have, to figure out the bite is not happening. Now, my thought at that time was, well, maybe it's because it's a lot colder, but it warms up. They're going to start coming out, and they're going to start biting those, bait fish style chatterbaits and swim jigs and all that. My theory is there was a lot more boat traffic on the weekend, and there was so much grass that they had to stay in those channels. So that murkied up the water big time. The water clarity during the week, as you would expect, not that many boats, was crystal clear. You can get up to, it was only 3 feet deep, but if it would have been 10 feet deep, you can still see the bottom, which it wasn't. But just to give you a point how clear it was. And that changed to like 6-inch visibility on tournament day. So my theory is they moved into the grass where all that churn wasn't affecting, the water clarity was still good. And I stuck with it. Day 2, I literally just took one rod. It was I lied. I took also my chatterbait just in case.
Yeah, you always got to take more rods.
But I was like, I'm going to punch the hell out of this spot for better or worse. And if I skunk, I skunk. But that is all that I'm doing. And I ended up catching 8. And it's one of those things where like there's going to be windows where the fish are going to stop biting. And maybe that's when you throw a Ned rig or throw a Senko, depending how deep you're fishing. Other times she's just like, I'm going to keep doing the same thing until the bite finally picks up. And I went through, like, I caught my limit kind of early, went through like a dead zone from like somewhere like from 11 to like 1 o'clock. And I think lines out was like at 3. I can't remember. I think it was at 3. So the last 3 hours, it picked up again. But I was just going to grind it out. I knew it's like, I'm just going to have to keep doing this. But it's one thing is when it's and that only comes with going full circle, what we started talking at the beginning, time on the water. Yeah. There's no other way to figure it out, Eli. But great question, nonetheless.
Another thing that, like, this past tournament that I got second on is being flexible. Like, going into this tournament.
Now I know that's fake.
Yeah. Going into this tournament, I had a game plan. The weather got cold. It was going to rain. But my game plan was to catch 5 fish. I caught some scoping in deeper water, and I did catch some shallow in a chatterbait, but they were both the same size. So my goal was, in the morning, everyone's going to go shallow. So I'm going to go shallow with them before the fish get too pressured, catch a couple, then go deep and finish off my limit. But I never caught, again, any good size either way. Well, an hour into it, I catch a 17.5 on a chatterbait. And I was like, okay, I need to stay here longer because I didn't catch any of that in practice. Then I caught another 17.5, and I said, that's it. I'd never even turned on my live scope that day. I said, this is where I'm going to get the winning. If I'm catching the winning size fish on this, I need to stick it and just move my game plan. I threw a chatterbait all day, and I ended up catching 91.25 inches. Like, you just got to be super flexible all the time. And like you said, there's times where, you changed it. The fish can move as well. Sometimes they'll start deep, they'll go shallow, they'll start shallow, they'll go deep. There's so many factors. So it's just time on the water and experience to hopefully know, okay, this is what it feels like they're doing. Like, I'm in the area, they're not eating, I'm going to wait it out till they start eating, or they left this area, where are they now? And following your gut. So the biggest thing, whether you're practicing for a tournament or if you can go out in the kayak for 3 hours after work, get out there, because you might learn something in those 3 hours that whether it took you learned one thing, one little thing, it's gonna add to your resume, and you just need to keep spending. I mean, I bet you I'm on the water 100 days a year at least because you just feel better. Your decision making, especially in a tournament, gets a lot better when you have that groove. You know, whether it makes you do good in a tournament or not. When you do good in a tournament, your headspace feels really, really good. But you always have to be in there, motivated. It is tough when it's super hot out there to stay in the zone, but you have to stay focused and just grind until the very end. Don't give up. Don't go in 30 minutes early. Like, stay out there until the very end because you never know what you're going to learn that might help you get that one extra bite you need.
Couple of questions that I want to touch in. Larry Stroman, thank you for your question. Says first bait you're picking up to start the morning in the spring. Anything that's noisy and has black and blue. For me, like a chatterbait, black and blue chatterbait, a buzz bait, a whopper plopper, or whatever Berkeley's version of it is, the chopper. To me, just because black and blue, or black because it's going to create contrast, especially if you have like a full moon out there and it's a little bit brighter. You know, even if it's dark, you still get that little bit bright light coming from the moon. That'll create a contrast. Anything that's noisy, anything that's, you know, that's going to attract attention, because obviously visibility is going to be an issue. So that's my that's what I would throw. Jake, what do you have on that?
I mean, if it's a grassy lake in the springtime, that chatterbait bite is like no other. I love a chatterbait bite. If it's not much grass, probably throw a spinnerbait around wood, throw a crankbait. I usually try to stay moving, even in the summer with a frog or something. I try to stay moving in the morning, cover water, find those active fish, and take advantage of that morning bite.
Are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Eli's question. This is a mental, but on time. It is very tough, Eli.
So let me read the questions for those that are listening.
On
the MP3 format. This is a mental question, but a tournament, but on a tournament that you catching one every hour. That's if I'm lucky. If I catch one every hour, is there anything you do to keep your focus and not zone out? Jake, I'll let you start with this one.
The biggest thing, Eli, I would say is what quality fish did you catch? Did you catch like a 15-incher, or did you catch one of the winning fish? Because it is a lot easier to stay zoned in. I would say at least, you know, for up to an hour if you know you caught a right one. Once you catch two of them, like if I catch two big ones doing something and it was a bite an hour, I'm in. I'm locked in. That's it. I'm zoned in. We're doing that the rest of the day. But it can be tough. The biggest thing is just keep telling yourself that next cast, make sure you are casting. Don't be lazy. There's so many times that you skip not as good, or you skip and you're looking away, especially frog fishing. Frog fishing, every time you look away, they're blowing up on it. So the biggest thing is just trying to stay in there. And over time, I mean, the more times you experience that type of bite, it makes it a little easier to stay zoned in. But there's times it's super tough, and it's just you gotta tell yourself that that's the way that's gonna win.
That's a good question. I actually wanted to make a video out of it because I go back to what happened in Caddo in November. So when nothing was working for me, I figured it's like, all right, I kind of saw little open spots in the grass where I saw water clarity. So my thought is like, they must have moved in with all the murky water, with the boat traffic. They must have moved in into the grass. So I tied my snell knot on my flipping hook to punch grass. And this is a little extra information. When you tie a snell hook or a snell knot on a punch rig, you have to make sure you are going, the line has to go from the front to the back. If you do it vice versa, that hook is gonna, when you set the hook is actually gonna go the wrong way, and you're gonna lose most if not all of it. The reason why I mentioned that is because like Eli was saying, I was so zoned out, I was so frustrated that after that, it took me like 20 minutes to tie a snell knot because I haven't tied one in, like, I don't know the last time I tied one. And second of all, I was so frustrated. So when I realized I tied it the wrong way, I had to redo it, and I was getting frustrated. So I redo it. It started flipping, but my head was not in the right place. So I was my punching, my flipping was all over the place. I was getting my line caught in my in the guides. I was not hitting my spots. And one thing that I do, and this might be different for everyone. First thing I do is I put that rig away, and I was like, all right, let me take a deep breath. One thing that I do, again, this could be different for everyone. I started throwing my jackhammer, even though I knew it didn't work for the first 4 hours. I wasn't expecting to catch anything, but I just wanted to bomb the hell out of a cast, get my frustration out on something, just bomb it out there. And I don't know, for me, keep it clean, people. I know you're gonna go with your mind's in the gutter for some of you, but when I start reeling in that chatterbait and that vibration, it just feels like something. Okay. And it just feels good to just throw it out there and feel that jig vibration. And I don't know, it's soothing to me in the sense that, okay, at least I get my frustration out. So that may be different. Some of you might be good at, I don't know, skipping so that also happened on this time in Cattle Lake. And what I started doing, since I wasn't throwing a jackhammer because I was in shallow water, what I started doing, I was throwing a frog. And my point is, do a cast that you enjoy doing, even though you're not going to get results, but just so you can get normal, so you feel like you did a good cast. So I was throwing the jerkbait around, and just feeling it out, and just like, all right, let me just do a couple of bomb casts, feel good about what I'm doing, and then I'll go back. That kind of resets me. So my point is, if you're in that rut where nothing is working, you're zoned out, your mind is not in the right place, do something that you enjoy doing. Like, throw a bait that you enjoy throwing, throw your confidence, at least for a few minutes, to kind of get the feel of feeling good that you did a good cast, or that you are kind of like getting out of the break the habit, break that that, I don't know how do you call it, like that snowball. Always avoid that snowball from getting bigger and bigger. Just do something to break your pattern and do something different, do something that brings you confidence, at least for a few minutes. And then once you regain your confidence, go back to what you think is going to work.
Yeah, 100%. Give yourself 5 minutes. You need to just cool down, whether sometimes it's drink and eat. I know a lot of us don't take that out on the kayak, but I am known to not do that. And then I'll bring the lunch with me and the drinks. And then when I get off the water, I am eating and drinking everything I brought after I get off. But just give yourself 5 minutes, try to cool down, because if you get in a negative headspace, you're just spiraling yourself. And one thing about my headspace as well is, when we talk about grinder tournaments, or consider weather tournaments, if you're going into a tournament and you know that it is going to be cold and rainy that entire day, half of that field is already lost the tournament because they're out of it mentally. You have to zone yourself into that and hype yourself up that you know that you're gonna win, or I'm gonna get top 3. You got to hype yourself up, because most people are fair weather fishermen and they're already not looking forward to going out there, whether it's wind, rain, whatever. If you can keep that mental attitude that you're going to do good, it does wonders out on the water.
And even like, if another thing that I would mention, like if you're, let's say you're not getting the big ones and you're kind of getting frustrated, throw a Ned rig or something. If that's your confidence bait, for some people, they may not, power fishermen, they may not like the idea. But if you're comfortable throwing a Ned rig or weightless Senko, throw something that at least gets you a bite, even if it's like a catfish bite, man. Something tugging your line. It's crazy how that will reset you. I've been on tournaments, Lake Dardanelle, which I ended up 22nd on that tournament. I remember day 1, I only had one fish with an hour to go, and I was like zoned out. Like I literally almost falling asleep and drifting after pre-fishing for 3 days and no sleep at all. And I threw a chatterbait. I saw a bait fish jump and something was chasing it. So I threw a chatterbait mimicking that bait fish, which I already tied on, and I immediately hook into a 16-incher. It's crazy how it's like a jolt of energy. It's like drinking a 5-hour energy, an Adderall, and a triple shot mocha at the same time. Like it's crazy. From that last hour, I caught my last 4 fish, and I didn't catch more because I ended up being second place in day 1. So I figured I don't want to sore lip those fish. I already at least second place after day 1. That's good enough for me. And that's the other thing with tournaments, 2-day tournaments, at least on the Bassmaster, and Hobie used to be like that. You can't catch the same fish, even if on different days. They'll disqualify you. Even not that you're cheating, but let's say you catch, which has happened, you catch the same fish twice.
Yeah, especially with spawning.
Yeah, especially
it's
spawning.
Super tough.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that, because in the basketball tournaments, they do allow it, but there's a reason. And I think people need to understand this. When you're talking about the elites, there's a camera guy, and then MLF, there's a camera guy and a judge on your boat. So when you caught a fish twice, it's legit. You caught a fish twice. But when you're on a tournament, on a kayak tournament, nobody around you, you have no cameras. Who's to say that's why you're not allowed to use the same fish twice. Because there's nobody with you. When you're in a basketball tournament with a judge or a camera guy on your boat, then like they don't have to worry about you duplicating a fish, because you can't do it. You have witnesses in your boat. Where in a kayak you don't. So if see somebody with the same 24 inches, like, oh, I caught it twice. Did you? That's why. Anyways, we're about to close this up. I know you had a long day on the water, plus that whole thing with you losing your keys. So you've been here for an hour and 30 minutes, sharing great knowledge. So I'm going to give it a couple of more minutes. Hashtag giveaway, people. Do it now before we close this. We're going to be giving away 2 separate LRS rods from Douglas Rods. And we're going to be giving away 2 separate $50 gift cards for Mariner Sales. And again, if you don't live in Dallas, for the Mariner Sales gift cards, you can just shop online with the gift cards. If you win one of the Douglas rods, just message me through Facebook and give me your contact information if you win, and an address. They'll ship in directly from Douglas Outdoors. Great rods. I've been partnered with Douglas rods for a few years now, and I absolutely love those rods. The LRS, it's kind of like the middle of the table rods. They got the Era rods, which sell for $99. And they're more like your beginner rods. LRS are the middle of the road rods. They're usually between $150 to $150. And then, of course, they have the X Matrix, which are tournament rods, with those run up to $350, $400, which is amazing rods, by the way. But all right, so hashtag giveaway. We're going to keep it a couple of more minutes while we do that. Comment from Corey Geisenford. If you know where the big bed fish, is it legal to catch it the first day and submit it, and then go back second day just to sore lip so nobody else can catch it? I mean, by the rule book is illegal, because it's kind of obscure, but the rule is you're not supposed to do something to prevent another angler from catching a fish. Like that, in the way that you wrote it, it's not. I've never seen it on a tournament. I saw some guy, I don't know why that guy posted it, but he posted on, I think it was KBF, and I was like dumbfounded. So it was last year, a guy was fishing a tournament. He was kind of asked, he explained what he did, which I don't know why you would do that on a Facebook group. So he was trying to catch a bedding fish, and there was another angler nearby. He couldn't catch the fish. So he ran his motor through the bed to spread the fish out. And then he was upset that he got disqualified. I'm like, I don't know, the gentleman could be the nicest guy in the world, but that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, why would you post that and then be mad that you got disqualified? First of all, if you couldn't catch it, you couldn't catch it. If there's a better angler that caught it or can catch it, he's just a better angler than you. Just live with it. Second of all, you just destroyed, I don't know how many eggs, assuming they dropped their eggs already. Bass, like, you're actually causing harm to a bass and future bass because you're upset and throwing a tantrum that you couldn't catch a bedding bass and you didn't want anybody else to catch it. I read that. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Just ban this kid. Should have banned him from the tournament scene.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be worried about like you should be
Imagine if
worried
it's
about
somebody on the
catching
chat
your
right now that did that.
yeah.
Anyways.
Like you should be worried about catching your other fish on day 2. Like I wouldn't be surprised if someone has done that before, but yeah, that's
But
I'm
trust me, Corey, I know a couple of stories, firsthand stories of people literally store lipping the crap out of a spot on free fishing because they know another angler is going to be fishing that spot. I've heard about it. It sucks. I mean, it's pre-fishing, so it's technically not on illegal because the tournament hasn't started. Some might call it sportsmanship. It's up to them. I wouldn't do it. It's not against the rules to do it. So it's it's your conscience if you want to do something like that. I know it has been done a bunch of times. It happens a lot more than people know. But to me, it's like let your conscience decide. Would you like somebody else to do that for you? And I'm not just talking about Corey. I'm not picking on Corey on this one. That's a good question. But when we're talking about pre-fishing, just to answer the question, no judgment, Corey, is like it's on pre-fishing. It's not illegal to sword lip fish. It's part of it. It's part of the gamesmanship, whether people like it or not. All right, hashtag giveaway. Has anybody else put anything? Oh, a couple of more minutes. Jake, before I let you go, do you plug in anybody you want to thank? Anybody, any of your sponsorship or partnerships? Go right ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So you guys can find me on socials, Jake_STEM_fishing, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook's just Jake STEM. But yeah, sponsors, Old Town kayaks. Love the Old Towns. They came out with those new kayaks. They're awesome. They were at Mariner Sales booth at the Expo, Bassmaster Classic Expo. I got to see them in person, which was awesome. Which I was working there with Rabbit Baits. If you don't know about Rabbit Baits, awesome company up in Vermont, made right here in the USA. They use Arctic fox and rabbit fur embedded in the soft plastic when they pour it. They pour it all themselves. My go-to stuff, chatterbait trailers, the Fox Shot for a different minnow presentation if you guys are a minnower, Demiki rig kind of person, the little crawl, really good. Sniper Marine. They make a really, really good. If you don't know about Sniper Marine, you should, for forward-facing sonar transducer poles. And Queen Tackle, make great chatterbaits. I'm gonna forget someone, but I appreciate all my sponsors, and I just love tournament fishing. I love competing, but I love meeting people and hanging out with people. Like you go to those tournaments and you get a house with a bunch of people, you hang out. It's kind of a vacation.
A lot.
You learn a lot. Kind of
Iron sharpens
you don't
iron.
get much sleep. Like it's not really a vacation, but you learn a lot. You get to meet so many awesome people and just go to amazing fisheries. Like I cannot wait for the Champlain event for Bassmaster. It is going to be so much fun. I'm super excited for that one.
Good luck with that. All right, let's do the giveaway real quick. For those that are double dipping in the giveaway, I hate to tell you, but the app recognizes if you did it twice, they only allow one entry. But let's do this. Oh, wait a minute. Let's share the screen. Because I don't want to be accused of anything. I don't want to be accused of favoritism. So
I gotta go in quick and comment. I'm just kidding.
All right, share, draw. Maybe your girl Hillary is gonna win. Somebody's trying to get you into jail.
Probably.
Urban Fishing TV. All right. Oh, I forgot to mention this is the LRS rods. So this is the bait casting rod. I should have mentioned that before. So first up is the LRS. It's going to be, I think, a 7-foot 2-inch all-around rod. So Urban Fishing TV. If you're watching now, don't put your information on the comment section, please. Just go to my Facebook and send me a DM with the name and address where you want this to be shipped, and then Douglas Rod will ship it. Give it about a week or so. So congratulations to Urban Fishing TV. So next one is going to be the LRS spinning rod. So let's do that again. Draw again. Almost thought
Ooh.
Steve was going to begin cap and hooks.
Yeah, that's my boy Juan.
There you go.
PA.
Juan,
just
you
won it
get
on.
to LRS spinning rod. Again, don't put in the comment section. Just go directly to DM me your information, your details, where you want it sent with your name and address. And again, give it a week or so. All right. Next one is one of the $50 gift cards for Mariner Sales. Go back to it. Draw again. See who we won. Drum roll, please. Forgot to do the drum roll. I'm not good with the drum roll. You can tell I wasn't a drummer. Hector Figueroa, Latins coming in strong on this one today. Got Juan. We got Hector. Hector, you get a $50 gift card. Same thing that I told the other guys. You get it by mail. They'll send it directly, I think, for Mariner Sales. Unless you live in Dallas, Texas, or Fort Worth, Texas, then you can go pick it up there. Just let me know. And last but not least, another $50 gift card. That's going to be the last giveaway.
You got to let me know when you're doing a giveaway again. I got to join the comments.
I know, right? I forgot the drum roll. Corey!
Hey,
Finally got Corey. You got a $50 gift card. Corey.
You get a lot of good questions.
Yeah, I kind of wanted Eli to win it. I know he always takes part in the giveaway, but I got to go by the rules, Eli. Sorry about that. But Corey, same thing. I don't know if you want to pick it up directly at Mariner Sales or if you want to shop online. Corey, let me know. And for those that, if you know any one of these, just tell them to message me. They can listen to the podcast later on. But anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much. Let me stop sharing the screen. Congratulations to everybody that won. Look, we're circles now. I don't know why we're circles. Congratulations to everybody that won. Thank you, Jake, so much for showing so much knowledge. It's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And looking forward to seeing. Man, you should have fished when you came here to Texas for the expo. You got to come back again.
I'm gonna have to come back down. I seen Caddo, all the footage. I'm thinking next year. My goal next year is to fish all the Bassmaster Open events, the kayak events. That's my goal, is to travel and fish them. So we'll see what happens. But hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I love talking fishing. I mean, can't go wrong talking fishing. I had a blast, and I hope you all learned something. And I put out that video recently on my YouTube channel where it goes all in depth on it as well. If you guys want to watch that, it'll kind of reiterate what all we went over, and you guys might learn a little extra as well.
All right, for those out there that are watching or listening, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Remember, if you're going to wear if you're going to be in the water, wear your PFDs, and go check out my awesome business partners, Douglas Outdoors. They make amazing rods. I think they're doing a overstock sale on the X Matrix, which usually those rods are like $400. They're giving, you can buy online. Just go to douglasoutdoors.com and toggle over to where it says overstock. You can get them at heavily discounted price for those swim bait guys that love swim baits. Norsk Lithium, amazing lithium batteries, and Mariner Sales. Again, we're gonna have a demo day at Scott's Landing Marina in Lake Grapevine this Sunday, April 12th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. So go check that out. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. Have a great night. Peace out.